Welcome everybody to this council meeting, and I ask for apologies. Councillor Dennis is an apology, and I'm sure Councillor Maguire will be here very shortly. We acknowledge and respect our complex history, and Mr Maguire, it's right on time, so you're okay. I started a little early, but and I apologise.
No, I apologise for you, sorry.
No. I'll start again. We acknowledge and respect our complex history. We welcome everyone to build our future together. Please note this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meetings policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live streaming and recording. Thank you. Are there any members' declaration of interest? Being none, I note that there was a request from Mr Grundy, which was disallowed under Section 11 of the Local Government Act regulations. There are item 4, petitions and deputations. There are none. Item 5, I'd ask someone to move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of December 2024 are read and confirmed as an accurate record of proceedings. Councillor Ireland, Councillor Grundy, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Item 6, matters laid on the table from the previous meeting. There are none. Item 7 is my report. And as far as council business or functions are concerned, I'll report on Australia Day celebrations in my next report. But I'd just like to mention that it is with sadness that I announce the passing of former Mayor and Councillor Richard Bourne. Richard Bourne was a councillor and Deputy Mayor 1998 to 2000 and Mayor from 2000 to 2006. Richard served his community with dignity and compassion and will be remembered as a kind and engaging contributor to the Naracoorte-Lissondale Council and the broader community of the South East. And I note that it was his funeral today. Also, I'd like to note the passing of former Mayor William Bill Pomeroy, Mayor and Councillor. He died on the 30th of December 2024. Bill was a much cherished member of our community and lived in Naracoorte all his life and will be missed by all. Bill served his community in many ways and is well remembered as a councillor from 1973 to 1991 and as mayor from 1979 to 1982. Bill was a man of principle and held the high moral ground and was unwavering in his belief that all people were good, just that some may need a little help with their direction. And so the Naracoorte-Lissondale Council extends its sincere sympathy to and condolences to the Pomeroy family as well. I'd like to move that and call for a seconder. Councillor Downwood, all those in favour? Question?
Yes. Are you moving both of those together or separately?
Together, yes.
So at the moment it's only for the family?
Yeah, so that will just delete that line.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman.
So what was that, sorry? You want to...
So the sympathy will be extended to both families on the one line, and that is my report. Everyone happy with that? Thank you. Elected members' reports. I don't think we've received anything written. Councillor Goodman?
Sorry, I did fail to provide a written report given Christmas and New Year activities, but I'd just like to report that on the 21st of January, so Tuesday last week, I participated in a meeting that was convened by Minister Nick McBride with Minister Hilliard, Sport and Rec Minister, at the Narra Swimming Lake, and it was a great opportunity to showcase the facility, to talk about the master plan. She was very interested in future plans for the sporting facilities of our region, and I think it was a really good opportunity for council to put forward positions, and also that I met with members of the Limestone Coast Toy Library and learned about what they offer, and I think they're looking for new premises to expand and be able to continue to provide services to community.
Thanks, Councillor Goodman. Anybody else make a brief report? Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Item 9, Mr. Smart.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First item is representation review, so an update following our briefing session with Craig Rowe, consultant. So he's provided the representation report based on indications at that briefing session. I think it captures what was discussed on the night. So the process from here, if council endorses it, will go through public consultation stage, suggesting for the minimum 21 days. Any comments received then are provided back to council for consideration of any comments and or endorsement of a final position, which will then go to the Electoral Commission for final ratification, etc. So continuing part of the process, and could probably suggest do the recommendations as we go. So recommendation there, that council endorses the representation report as presented for public consultation purposes and undertakes a 21-day public consult process commencing in February 2025.
Mover, please. Councillor Turner, Councillor Crosling. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much.
My second part of the report, Lucendale Health Centre, had discussions with the Mayor this afternoon. My understanding there's perhaps needs to be a little bit more consideration and confirmation from the Lucendale Health Trust, so I'll withdraw that report, but still happy to take any questions on that.
Councillor Grundy.
Mayor, I agree with many of the points in the report. Only maybe the framework or the skeleton of the articles of association to do with the trustee organisation needs to be confirmed and executed in the proper way as step number 1 maybe.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. I just wonder whether, Mr. Smart, there could be some consideration around the contribution of the $4,000 towards the door, and whether that could be a separate recommendation.
It can be. My understanding, I know the two matters of possible relinquishment of the lease and the contribution to the door, because that's been a fairly drawn out process getting to this point in time. My only concern is if the trust doesn't agree with future lease terms, that council is then holding a $10,000 expense rather than a potentially 4 or 0, given that in an ideal world the door works would be a matter of lessee or sublessee. The benefit is with the health services, but as outlined in my report, I think it's in the best interest of particularly Lucendale community and continuation of health services that we come to this a third each contribution. So happy to move that, but with an eye on that lease, in that I don't think we should backdate it to July 2024. That has never been discussed. Where council, so if the lease is relinquished by the trust, which they're entitled to do, and that's still a council decision for the future, there's no lease in place with any user of that facility. So that would take some time to put that in place, particularly with the state health service. That won't happen overnight. So if that happened tomorrow, there'd be no tenant, whether it be GP, health services or the gym. No one's got any tenure over that building.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. So can we assume that it'll be business as usual at the Lucendale Health Clinic, business as usual, even though, you know, we may be some way off of the door. So even though the door has been mooted over quite a period of time, and there's an expectation that the door will be put up, if it's delayed another couple of months, it's not going to impact on the services provided at Lucendale.
Don't believe so. It's been operating fairly normally as we've worked through this for a fair period of time, so I can't imagine anything changing. Currently the trust has a lease, so that doesn't change until any decision's made. So presume that things would continue as normal.
Thank you.
I've got to declare interest in on the trust. So
Councillor Rayner declares an interest. He's a trustee of the Lucendale Health Trust.
I'll vote or.
Yep, no, there's no decisions to be made, Trevor, but Councillor Rayner, thank you. Item 10. Yep. Oh, is that bit? Leading on. Item 10. Mr. Wilsmore.
Thank you. Just add to the report, our reseal contracts have been delayed, so they didn't turn up to site on Thursday. They had an issue with their spray unit, which is requiring some repairs, so those works will be continuing in February. Happy to take questions on the rest of the report.
Any questions of Mr. Wilsmore? On target, and of course we're not in the position to know if there will be any, you know, runovers into the new year at this point. It's all looking good. Excellent, Mr. Wilsmore. Item 11, finance reports.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Nothing further to add to the report. Happy to take questions.
Councillor
Thank
Grundy.
you, Ross. I think, am I right in saying, I'm referring back to when I read this earlier, is there a reference to a reduction in interest rates, in an interest rate that we're paying on one of our loans from the LGFA? And I suppose further to that, given that there's been no reduction in official interest rates, I just wonder how that's come to be.
Oh, so yes, they reduced their cash advance debenture rate, which we don't have any facilities other than the facility we're using for the Lucendale Football Club loan that we access. So that's effectively an overnight rate. So that's reduced from, I think it's 6.15 to 6%. They often determine their own rating. I guess they look at their own situation and what they're able to offer. Ordinarily, they follow directly after Reserve Bank announcements. So the finer details, I have had correspondence from them, which I'm happy to pass on to yourselves if I haven't already, in terms of that, if you'd like. So from our perspective, majority or all of our investments are in fixed term rates. And our loan facilities with the NRLE are all on fixed rates as well. It's only that cash advance debenture that we've used for the Lucendale Football Club $50,000 loan that is affected by that. So that will in fact come back in the interest rate for them. Hopefully that helps.
Mrs. Edmonds, in regard to rate arrears, I noticed that it seems to be a little higher at this time of the year than in previous years. Are we expecting this trend to continue?
No, I wouldn't think so. I would like to think it probably is on the improve. I'm not sure. I haven't delved further into. I can find some more detail without naming particular rate payers as to where it's all sitting and why. Happy to pass that information on if that's of concern. So, yep.
Thank you. Item 11.2, annual business plan and budget timeline. Do you have anything to add, Mrs Edmonds?
No, thank you, Mayor Ross. All I will emphasise is that that first workshop that we're holding, or briefing session on the annual business plan and budget, we will be doing in-depth discussions around the long-term financial plan projects that we've been discussing over the time, and we'll hopefully make some firm decisions on where we put those within the long-term financial plan moving forward. So rather than addressing the basics of the budgeting process, which we've still got that information available for everyone, we'll tailor it a bit better to that, and community submissions. So community submissions start beginning of next week and will be available for the 4 weeks after that.
Thank you, Mrs Edmonds. Minutes and recommendations from council committees. Neil, is that correct? Late item from comes into the SAP, thank you. Is that right? Yep. And item 13, reports for I've missed something.
Yeah, up on the screen.
Oh, here they
The
are.
late.
Oh, I should have been looking up there. Very good. Okay, so would someone like to move the minutes of the Strategic Asset Planning Committee meeting held on the 21st of January? An accurate record. Councillor Turner. Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Recommendation from the SAP committee to the council is that all existing full-width spray-sealed footpaths are retained as spray-sealed footpaths and the footpath policy is upgraded. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Downwood. Councillor Turner. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. In regard to the Leesdale Master Plan, that a working group consisting of one member of council administration, which will be Mr Willsmore, and 3 elected members is formed to provide input to the Musgrave Avenue upgrade and present an amended 70% design to the May SAP meeting. Someone care to move that? Councillor Goodman? Yes.
I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, I did a bit of research after our last SAP meeting regarding this. I know it's probably not going to change the decision tonight. However, when we went to community consultation and the walk around back in 23, the SAP meeting of July the 11th, 23, had a full report from that walk around. There was about 25 community members at that walk around. Notes were taken by Jane Miller, council staff at the time, and read back to those community members that were present. And it was detailed in the report in the SAP meeting, and it clearly states that the community, it was agreed within the group that 2 sets of crossings be installed, and that both be pram ramps and a central medium strip / safe refuge for crossing, as well as pedestrian rails, be included in the report, which is exactly what the administration have done. The administration have done this concept design. In that meeting also, it was moved that option 1 was actually endorsed by the community, by the council here, with the one exception that angle parking be done, which is exactly what, again, administration brought back last SAP meeting. I disagree with having a working group. I feel like it's just adding a complete another layer to it. We're not going to please everyone, we never are, but we seem to be listening to the minority again. The community, the 25 people that came to that walk around, that is exactly what is agreed upon, and it is in the SAP meeting minutes on the 11th of July 2023, and that's exactly what was in that meeting, in that concept that was brought to the SAP meeting last Tuesday. So for us to sit here and say, let's look at a zebra crossing, it's not what the community actually asked for. It's not in the report. The community asked for safe refuge and rails in the middle of a Musgrave Ave. So we need to be listening to the community. There's no point having these walk-arounds and having this consultation, and I get this comes from a good place, having a working group, but again, we're here to make decisions. The community said that's what they would like. That's what the administration put in the concept, and I think we just need to go ahead with it instead of spending more money on getting more concepts done.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Grundy, thank you. Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Mayor. If I can speak against the motion too. I was in Lucindale working on Friday, and I had a local ratepayer approach me, and she was was there on the walkthrough, and her words were, "This is what we asked for. Why are we going to now go to a working group and not listen to the 25 people that put in the effort to actually get to the walkthrough and take part into the consultation? Why is this now going to drag on and potentially change what we've actually asked for?" So I'll be voting against the motion too.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Downwood.
I wasn't going to say anything, Mr Mayor, but I was listening to Australia Day and talked to quite a number of the people there, and all those that I spoke to, and after I went out to the hotel and had a drink, and those in the hotel are totally opposed to any protuberances in the street. So I guess it depends on who you're with or where you're at as to the people that you're going to speak to that want different things. So it's again, we need that just to thrash it out and come up with it. So that's speaking for the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Downwood. Is there any further discussion? Being none, I put the motion that a working group consisting of one member of administration and 3 elected members is formed to provide input to the Musgrave Avenue upgrade and present an amended 70% design to the MASAP meeting. All those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Recommendation that the following councillors, Councillor Goodman, Turner and Rayner, be the elected members nominated for the Musgrave Avenue Design Working Group. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Grundy. Councillor Rayner. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Comes from the Botanic Working Group, that the trees at 10 Pallant Close be removed at council's cost due to medical grounds in accordance with the policy. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Goodman. Seconder, please. Councillor Grundy. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. That the 2 trees along 7 Gum Avenue, Narracourt, are removed at council's expense. A mover, please. Councillor Maguire. Councillor Downwood, you second that? Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. The picnic area boundary and fence line of Boston Reserve, Cadgee Road, Narracourt, be cleared for fire prevention and a target weed control and pest control rabbits program be implemented. Someone like to move that? Councillor Goodman. Councillor Grundy. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 13, reports for decision. Mr Smart.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Policy review on elected members' training and development policy. Really just an update of our existing policy now being reviewed. As I've detailed within the report, I've added a part about the legislative compliance if people don't do the interim mandatory training. So all of our elected members have now completed the interim training as of last week. As detailed, the legislation takes into account what happens if you don't do the initial training after election, but it's silent on what happens if you don't do the interim training. So from advice from Kelly Jones, who undertook the training, I'd ask him questions before the training, what happens if we don't do it, etc., because the Act was a little bit unclear. From his information, he's worked with the LGA-SA, and that's generally the broad policy approach they've taken within a reasonable time. The effect, if you don't do the training, you open yourself up to be suspended, but that still remains a decision of council to do suspension. It's not an automatic occurrence. So if this will be for future councils, not this one, because you don't have to do any more mandatory training until re-election or not in 2026, 7, something like that. So happy to take questions. It's there hopefully for your endorsement.
Someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Crosling, thank you. Councillor Turner, any discussion? Being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. 13.2, Mr Willsmore.
Thank you. So Mrs Collins has put together quite a detailed report on the consultation we undertook for Leicester Park. So we engaged with the Narracourt South Primary School to seek their feedback on suggested improvements on the Leicester Park playground. Based on that, we approached a number of suppliers and installers of playground equipment to come back with 4 concept plans based on the endorsed budget within the long-term financial plan for the replacement of this playground. So we received the 4 concept plans provided back to the school with various feedback being provided and the recommendation of a clear favour through the consultation with the school of option 1. So again, we just want to acknowledge Narracourt South Primary School for their assistance with this program. Some of the junior classes certainly went above and beyond what I was expecting with the number of different drawings and designs that they came up with themselves. So it's quite a good process the school undertook for us. So the recommendation the council endorses the inclusion of the option 1 concept plan for the Leicester Park playground renewal provided by Modular Play in the 2025-2026 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Actually, I was actually, before Mr Willsmore spoke, I was actually going to ask if we could, if I could actually move that item 13.2 is actually deferred with further research into appropriate designs for renewal and replacement of the...
Councillor Ireland.
Yes.
A deferment motion would need to happen before the item was discussed. It's a report. It's a moot point whether that's a discussion of the item or whether the elected members discuss the item.
Right. Where would you like me to go with this, please, Mayor Ross?
I will confer with my CEO.
You can speak against the motion. Same thing.
Different. It's not mine. It's just defer. But they have to give a reason for deferral.
That still comes back.
Yeah. Defer not to leave it on the table, I think. Yeah. You can defer it for and suggest a date.
Yeah, same thing.
Correct. Councillor Ireland, carry on.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to move that item 13.2 is to be deferred with further research into appropriate designs for renewal or replacement of the existing Leicester Square playground to be brought back to Council at our Strategic Asset and Planning meeting 11th of March 2025.
Mr Smart.
I can only, given that I won't be present at that meeting, to allow administration to undertake that further research. Can you give us a little bit more information on sort of like the intent of that? Because otherwise we can do a lot of research, accept a lot of work and still come back to something that doesn't meet expectations. So a little bit of guidance to help administration move to that next step.
Thank you, Mr Smart. If you don't mind me, I was actually including my speaking for the motion is actually more questions and statements, which hopefully satisfies what you're asking for. First of all, I was confused as an elected member in that it doesn't seem to appear in the 24-34 long-term financial plan, but has suddenly appeared in the 25-35. I just need some of these questions answered, please. Can we perhaps see the result of the audit on the playground when it last was, and what maintenance was necessary and has taken place? Just to know, so we know just what stage this playground is up to that's being replaced.
What we do know, Councillor Ireland, is that all open space playgrounds are reviewed monthly.
That's why I'd like to see the result of the audit and the review.
Well, they're reviewed monthly, whether there's an audit done, but they're reviewed monthly for, suitability for Well,
if we can have some input back from that, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. Is this playground to be increased in size? Does this fit for a renewal replacement, or is this capital expenditure if we're increasing the size dramatically? And then just looking at it briefly, it doesn't seem that there is any fencing in the design put before us. Is this likely to be a necessary addition further down the track? We're likely to need toilets on a playground of this size that we're looking at installing. And just observations in that things such as an eco charging station is perhaps not a prudent spend of ratepayers' funds for a playground, that's all. So anyway, that's all of just questions to throw out there, a little bit of just where we're going and what we need to spend for this playground, not just put before us.
So a little bit more around that, Councillor Ireland. When Mr Willsmore comes back to the SAP, are you looking for, you know, three designs, you know, that show the equipment that's likely to be in, you know, the design? Is that what you're looking for at this point?
Well, thank you. I mean, I suppose just to be putting $360,000 on the table for a playground replacement, first of all, my question was what sort of condition is the playground in that we're replacing? But second, what are the options? We spent close to $250,000 on the Market Square playground. Thank you. I mean, do we need to spend $360,000? Are there other options that can be put before us as to how much money we do need to spend?
Mr Willsmore, have you got enough information? Is that helpful, or would you be wishing some more?
We have an open space management plan that sets up hierarchies about what equipment's required, what facilities are required, so that's what this design's been based on. So again, elected members need to provide the direction and review the asset management plans, all the details in there, so we can provide the information as needed. The eco charging station is a play equipment, it's not to charge an electric vehicle, so it's just a facility for the students, the kids to use, which is part of the feedback. So we can provide, we won't provide any new designs, we can provide the justification on the equipment and what's there. It's based on the remaining useful lives and our expected useful lives of our assets, and then how much they get used and requests and the needs through the community is put in the report, but we can provide further information for the next sub-meeting.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore. Today, I went and had a look at the Leicester Park playground, and then I went down to the Memorial playground and talked with two young mothers down there with their 4 children. One of them was 5 minutes. She was in 4th Avenue and uses the Leicester Park Square playground a lot, 5 minutes walk, and she liked it a lot. I asked her what she thought about it. She said, "Oh, it could be in need of an upgrade." I thought that was interesting. She did like the bark chips and wasn't actually keen on rubber. You know, it's, as we discovered at Lucendale on Sunday, it smells a lot. Councillor Crosling, oh, I've got you there, thank you. Yes, so, you know, they are well utilised. There's no doubt about that. But I was pleased to be able to talk with a couple of people that utilise both playgrounds, and they like them both. Councillor Crosling.
I take serious issue with the fact that we're deferring this, and Council Ireland has come with a list of questions, and we've had this agenda for a week, and you haven't reached out to Mr Willsmore to get any answers to your questions, but you come here, you defer a motion. This was endorsed by Council. It actually clearly states it's been endorsed by this Council in the Open Space Asset Management Plan. We endorsed it as a Council to go to consultation, to remove the bit of the draft, to get some plans done up to actually save money. We said we'd go to the school and consult with the school. So we want to do all this consultation, but again, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to pull the trigger. This is a joke. I cannot believe you've come with a list of questions and you haven't even gone to administration. It's funny how we want to spend $360,000 a year extra on gold standard roads, but we don't want to spend it on playgrounds that our whole community use. These are our premier playgrounds. McDonald Street Playground got to that bad a state, it was rusted everywhere. We're getting on top of this one before it even gets to that point. We have done all this consultation, and now you want to, get some more plans to make it cheaper just because we want to put some more money into some gold-plated roads. Like, this is so slack. Like, we've had this for a week. We chose to get our minutes a week in advance so you can do your homework, you can ask the questions before coming here and asking a suite of questions. You could have got answers to this prior to this meeting. Again, I think it's just hilarious how we're just so focused on one part of our community that we've gone and we've done all this. Administration have worked their backside off and done all of this, but hang on, let's put a pause again, because, you know, heaven forbid we spend some money on some playgrounds that over $360,000 over 20 years, $18,000 a year. It's not a bad spend, really. So come on, let's stop just trying to kick the can down the road on everything in this council because it doesn't suit some agendas. Our administration getting sick of it, our community is getting sick of it, and I think that if people can't do their homework before meetings, I took folks to Mr. Willsmore today and asked many questions about playgrounds and got my answers. I'm not going to stand here and throw a million questions at him and then say, oh, hang on, let's just kick it down the road. We've got a budget coming up, which I'm assuming this would have to be in Mr. Willsmore's budget. And again, March, we're already in budget briefing time then and workshops and stuff like that. Again, this would be held over for another 12 months. Like, do your homework, get the answers before meetings, and let's actually do what we set out to do. We've done community consultation. Let's listen to it. Been endorsed by council. Don't say that it hasn't been. It actually has. Everyone in this room has endorsed it. Let's actually get some stuff done for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. I have Councillor Grundy.
Thank you. I'd like to second the motion, please. This is not about not improving the playground. At the end of the day, that's a hell of a lot of money in anyone's language. If you consider the marketplace improvements there recently, which were about 250,000, I think, from memory, plus some add-ons afterwards, I think. Essentially, that's a Tier 1 playground, and this is a Tier 3 playground. I was up there myself today, and I think it's fit for purpose. Yes, there's the odd rusty panel on it and that sort of thing, but for all intents and purposes, it's very good, it's very user-friendly, and it's fit for purpose, and I don't think it necessarily has to be wholesale destruction of what is there. That's number one. And it's about delivering value for money for our residents. So this position is completely reasonable, and I'll certainly be endorsing it.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Councillor Turner.
I was just going to ask a question. I apologise if my memory's poor, but I was wondering how we came up with the 360 estimate for this playground. I'll make an assumption that the 250 we spent on Market Square would probably be that price today, given that building costs have gone up 30 or 40%. So maybe that's part of it. But I'm just trying to recollect. So is it correct that we would have had a SAT meeting, we would have come up with that amount at that SAT meeting, we would have approved it, therefore the administration goes away and uses that number? Or how did that 360 come up as a budgeted amount to give to designers to come up with the playground? And it could be a very simple answer, but I'm just not sure where that came from in my memory, and I apologise in advance if it was obvious.
Mr. Willsmore, thank you.
Thank you. So budgets weren't discussed in the SAP meeting, they discussed when we reviewed the AMP, so they're included in the long-term financial plan. So certainly in there, I can show Councillor Ireland after the fact if I need. In terms of the costing, yeah, it's based on similar to Market Square, so combination unit and the like, so that the equipment that's there, looking at replacing that. So it's not an upgrade, it's just replacement of an asset renewal. So a number of you will be aware we got some negative feedback about Market Square, saying it's too small when we spent all this money and taking equipment away. That was actually incorrect, but that's the feedback we got. So all that is doing is, you know, you mentioned about increases, inflation, CPI and that sort of thing, so it's still equivalent cost, just a few years down the track. So Market Square, that equipment when we replaced it was about 22 years old. Leicester Park's about 16 years old, so our AMP, so we should be looking at replacing them about 15 years. So that's an extension compared to metro areas for their replacement playground equipment, but ours doesn't get used as much as what it does in a metro area. So that's the driver for it. It's in the long-term financial plan, so then we plan for the renewal as directed by elected members.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. Very comprehensive. Did I have Councillor Downwood?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This playground is only about 150 metres from my house, so I know it quite well. And the equipment that's there is still fit for purpose. I don't see any need to rush in and do this sort of yesterday. We've got a couple of other jobs on the go at the moment with the weirs that we're looking at. There's an increase in what we expect to spend on that. So I'm in no rush to spend money on something that I don't think at this stage needs the money to be spent. So I'll be voting for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Goodman? Yes.
Yeah, I was taken aback by the costings for the playground, particularly given that it is a neighbourhood playground rather than our district playground, and we seem to be spending more money on that than we did a district one. I'm understanding that this is relative cost increases, and so confirm my understanding that the Market Square playground would be a $360,000 playground if we were buying today. So I don't, I'm prepared to accept that it's at end of useful life. That's why we depreciate. I suppose my question still is this money coming out of depreciation costs as a renewal rather than a capital upgrade?
Yes, this is renewal, so yeah, it's not an upgrade, it's just an asset renewal.
Money.
Do you have any?
I support Councillor Crosling. I'm not here to argue about the price, but just the way, again, I feel the chamber handles things. The questions fired at Mr Willsmore asking for this council to see the report on the deterioration of the playground and questioning, insinuating almost that Mr Willsmore has done this off his own back and doing it. He did?
I don't think the word insinuating, please.
Well, can I change it? What was the wording then, Mayor? How did you go about, how did we get to this point, Mr Willsmore? Insinuate, similar? I'm just asking. So I apologise to you, Mr Willsmore, because publicly, now live streamed, you are being made and questioned. As Councillor Crosling said, a simple phone call could have answered those questions, but you're doing your job. And again, you're being made, in my opinion, to look silly. I apologise for another failed public consultation, that we have wasted people's time. I'm blown away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Maguire. Are you wishing to close the debate?
If I may, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Listen, playgrounds are important in Narracourt, and I'm not trying to shovel this away and say, hey, that playground does not need replacing, not in any way, shape or form. I did send elected members this afternoon a photo of, when it came through Karoonda, of some great facilities they had there's a picnic area with a shade over it with a solar panel so mum and dad can charge their phones while they're watching their kids play. I just think there's other things we could possibly look at before we say, right, bang, we're going to put this playground in. We just need to get it right. That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to shut it down. Thank you.
Closure. Thank you. Closing. That is close the debate. The motion moved by Councillor Iden, second by Councillor Grundy, that item 13.2 is deferred to a SAP meeting on the 11th of March 2025. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is lost. If there was to be another recommendation, because that was the motion, if there was to be another recommendation, now is the time to put that. Councillor Crosling.
I'm happy to move the initial motion if Councillor Allen would like us to look into the possibility of, when we put in the tables, to put in the ones that do have the solar panels. Happy to possibly have that included in the motion if that would be okay with Mr Willsmore, if that's something that he could take on board. But I'm happy to move the motion.
As it is. Thank you, Councillor Crossley. And may I just say that to endorse the inclusion of option 1 and then what that actually looks like, the concept in fact, will become more obvious, Mr Willsmore, as we get closer, I'm sure.
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Councillor Grundy.
Question. That $361,000, does that include fencing
Thank you.
and installation?
No, it doesn't include fencing, so we don't fence playgrounds, so we can if that's direction from council, but that's not what we do. So if it's got an existing fence, we leave the fence as is, but the current thoughts about playground designs is not to put a fence in, so encourage your kids to play. So, and when you say installation, I'm assuming you mean installation of the playground. Yeah, that price does include supply and install.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore. And just for information, in talking with the young mothers at Memorial Playground this afternoon, there was a question about fencing, and they noted the use of it at the Marketplace playground where there is a lot of traffic, high traffic volumes. But they both agreed that, that the roads around Leicester Square or the Leicester Park playground, were quite narrow and the traffic volumes were quite low, and they didn't see any need for fencing. So, I mean, that was just information I received today. Is there any further discussion? I put them. Councillor Turner.
I want to speak for the motion. I thought I'd just say why. I visited the park myself today. I know it's a lot of money, and I know there are probably some people that would like to think, what could we do for less money? What could we do for 200 or 250, or so it becomes about the money. But that's the southern part of town. That there's a lot of families up there. There's a lot of renters up there with kids. I take Mr Willsmore's comment. I appreciated the fact that there was feedback from Market Square that we perhaps didn't do it big enough, and I think that's probably been fed in. That was a bit of new information for me to help me with that decision. I'm a great believer in do it once and do it properly rather than try and do it to a price. I think Councillor Crossley made a good point. That's $18,000 a year over the lifetime, which is, I guess I'm saying I've listened to some of the arguments in the room, which is I wasn't sure where I'd land on this, but I'm just publicly saying why I'm going to support the motion, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Yes.
Operations report. Thank you, Mr Willsmore, as written. If there are any questions, I'm sure Mr Willsmore would be only too happy to fill you in. Item 14.2, Mr McCroskey.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Nothing further to add. Happy to take questions on the report.
Thank you, Mr McCroskey. Are there any questions of Mr McCroskey? Being none, thank you. If I may, Mr McCroskey, I might just... when will the Bushfire Management Committees be having a meeting about fire danger, permits and that sort of information?
Yeah, Mayor Ross, there's currently a working group at present, which I'm currently a member of that working group, to look at the permit, how the permit's issued and some of the conditions that are set from the permits. Region 5 still working through that. They're hoping to get that to the BMC and formalised and ratified in March BMC meeting.
Okay. So there's an opportunity for people to put submissions in, or is there a process that they would go through to talk with Bushfire Management Committee?
From my understanding is that it'll go through the BMC, and a number of those key stakeholders, such as your PIRSA groups and so forth, that have representatives on that committee, will be able to put...
like grain producers, etc.?
The vineyards, wine industry, as well as the 7 councils that provide information and feedback on their permit season annually. So they'll be able to provide information and feedback through those channels.
Thank you very much, Mr McCroskey. 14.3, community engagement. Mrs Collins.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Just a quick follow-up with Australia Day having happened in between the agenda going out and tonight's meeting. We were very, very lucky to have beautiful weather, and I'd love to thank everyone who contributed and attended. Both events were very successful. We had between 250 to 300 at our Narracourt celebration in the morning, then about 80 at Lucindale over lunchtime. So they were awesome. We've had some great feedback. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs Collins, and also thanks to Yana. They did great work for that. Item 15, publications, documentations, there being none. Questions with notice, item 16, nil. Motions with notice, 17, 1. Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Mayor. To make life easier for everybody, not that I support Councillor Rayner's motion that he has put forward, but would it make it easier if I remove the dates on both of my motions? It's in your court.
No, it's your motion.
It is your motion, and it's specifically about these, the housing strategy and the roads report. If you remove the dates, we're mostly looking at changing our policy in regard to live streaming. So at the moment, live streaming does not include what we call briefing sessions and workshops, even though they're open to the public. At the moment, they're not part of our live stream policy. Mr Smart?
Correct, but it wouldn't necessarily mean a change in policy if it's only a one-off. So it's not.
So correct. So if it was a one-off, the date would need to be there so we could be specific around that.
No, well, either either or subject specific, which the motion is. So as a CEO, I would suggest if the date was removed, then it's up to council which way it votes, but that wouldn't require a change of policy because it's a specific to that. If you're making it that you wanted all briefing sessions live stream, that would definitely need a change of policy.
I'm only trying to make it easier.
Councillor Maguire, I'm happy for you to remove the dates.
Thank you, Sorry. So the motion will now read. Does that make sense? Is that right? That council live stream the council briefing session on the housing strategy, as the draft strategy is public information and in the public's interest. Transparency will help future decisions made by council and create discussion within the community. And I'd like to move that motion, Mayor.
Yes.
And I'll speak to it if I can. Thank you. Yep. So the housing strategy is a public document. The community now and beyond our years of elected members will benefit if we do this process correctly. If the council chooses not to reach out and live stream for this workshop, the public will lose so much information. Generally, from experience, the information that we speak about in these workshops, they used to be referred to as closed-door meetings or in-secret meetings. The information is so valuable. A lot of that information does not get repeated back when we come into the chamber in front of the media or the live streaming. There is a massive part of the consultation that we as a council have to do regardless of any decision with housing that we make. So in other words, we are going to have to go to consultation somewhere along the line with our housing strategy. Let's get people talking about this. It's an important issue. We can get people brainstorming within the community. Personally, I have so much I want to share on this topic and I want it live streamed. I want to people to hear my ideas. I'm not afraid whether they don't like them. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I want to get my ideas out to the community. I know the North Parklands will be a large part of that discussion, and that's okay as well. We all have different opinions on that, and I'm not trying to target anybody that is in favour of development or not. I'm just asking that the community needs to see where we all sit on whether we develop or we don't, and what the reasons are we are taking that path or not taking it. So yeah, I really hope that we can support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Crosling. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Goodman.
We have the live streaming and recording of public meetings policy that outlines our position on this, and so I'd therefore like to move formal motion that this motion be put.
Councillor Goodman would like to put the motion. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Grundy. The formal motion is that, my goodness, that the motion be put right now. Yes. So all those in favour of putting the motion, of voting on the motion now, please raise your hands.
Excuse me, I'm lost.
I beg your pardon?
I'm completely lost.
No, so a formal motion to put the motion means that there'll be no further discussion on the motion, and the motion, so this put motion is voted. If it's carried, your motion will be put without any further discussion. That's what a formal motion is. Okay, so we have a formal motion on the table to put the motion. I ask all those people who are in favour of the formal motion to raise their hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The formal motion is carried.
Can I call for division on that, please?
No.
I can't.
You can actually call the people.
Then you vote on the motion made.
Wow.
And then you vote. Yes, you can call a division.
So I think there's a misunderstanding of what's actually.
Well played, guys. Unbelievable.
Councillor Warnell thinks his motion's not going to be voted on, but it actually is. Yeah. But Councillor Maguire's motion still gets voted on.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't think.
Absolutely. So,
I don't think there's a clear understanding.
Okay. Yep. So I call for a division. All those in favour of the motion, please stand. We have Councillor Turner, Councillor Grundy, Councillor Downwood, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Goodman, and Councillor Rayner. Those in the negative are Councillor Maguire, Councillor Ross, and Councillor Crosling. I'm missing one. Tom. Okay, sure. Thank you. Now, I put the motion, moved by Councillor Maguire, seconded by Councillor Crosling, that the live streaming of the council briefing sessions on the housing strategy as a draft strategy in the public information and for public interest. This transparency will help in any future decisions made by council and create discussion within the community. I put that motion. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. 3. Those against? The motion is lost. Would you like a division? Yep. I call a division. All those in favour of the motion? All those in favour of the motion, please stand. I have Councillor Maguire, Councillor Ross, Councillor Crosling. And those against, I have Councillor Turner. I have Councillor Turner, I have Councillor Grundy, I have Councillor Downwood, Ireland, Goodman, and Rayner. Thank you.
So, can I ask a question, Ben?
You may.
So with my next motion, which is basically identical on the road strategy, if I speak to it and I get a seconder, Councillor Goodman can move a formal motion and shut down all discussion on that motion again. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's probably what's going to happen. Is that right?
I don't know how it's going to turn out, Councillor Maguire.
Honestly,
Because the community need to see what's going on.
I withdraw the motion, and I'm wasting my time. You guys,
What get?
no, all right, that's what it is.
All right, I'm sure Chris will report on it.
What I find really disappointing is
Not sure how that works.
we've got people that have actually got their how to vote cards was interesting. I'm sorry. I'm just.
Ross, do you wish to stand?
Yeah. We've got a really person who's just left the chamber, and I just find it quite gobsmacking what's going on. So we actually had a couple of years ago we had elections. You got people that are elected here, and I pulled out a couple of the how to vote cards, and we've got Councillor Grundy. Talks about
Shut him down, Abigail. Let him talk.
talks about transparency. I've got
Just because it doesn't suit your narrative, let him talk.
we've got 4 councillors that have actually said that they want transparency going forward. We have an opportunity to go talk about transparency, and we're actually pushing back on it. Transparency, like what we saw this afternoon with Councillor Ireland, is that if people were actually, with the questions he said, I'm a bit frustrated, I'm a bit flustered, to be honest. So I find it quite disappointing that we have an opportunity to telling the community, to bring the community along with what's going on, and when we have an opportunity to do it, it's getting shut down. So I just find it...
Thank you, Councillor Ross.
I don't know what else to say.
Councillor Maguire's left the chamber, if you noted that. Thank you. Item 17.2, Councillor Rayner. You have a motion.
Yeah, well, motion's in front of you, but the reason being is that the new CEO's got to deal with the whole lot. And if we deal with it before, we've got to go all this stuff twice. So
Thank
the new
you.
CEO will deal with it.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Councillor Rayner, do you wish to move that motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Crosland.
I'd just like to point out that I'm sure the new CEO will be quite capable and will be briefed on anything that the council has done in the past. Again, this is just kicking the can down the road because the reports don't fit the narrative you want to drive, and you continue to want to drive. You want to kick it down the road. Last meeting, it was like, oh, we had to have these workshops ASAP, and now it's like, oh, hang on, again, let's just put it in the background so the community forget that we spent $80,000 on a report that hasn't fit the narrative, that was clearly interfered with by councillors prior to it actually even happening. So again, we're just kicking it down the road, again, putting it into, this is an in-confidence meeting, so I hope the Naracoorte News put it all over the front page like they used to do with the previous council, that we had all these in-confidence meetings and it was all secret, because again, this is what this council has just done. Put it in secret, doesn't fit the narrative, let's just, kick it down the road for the new CEO. I'm sure she'll be briefed on anything that this council has done in the last X amount of years. I'm sure she's capable of reading some reports and catching up. I don't think, again, we need to postpone it for another couple of months just so we can just kind of forget about it.
Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Grundy.
Ross, I'd be pleased to second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Councillor Ross.
Given that the CEO, Trevor Smart, has probably got a lot of knowledge that would have been, will help with the discussion that will be occurring at this workshop, I would have thought it would have been prudent to have him there. If there happens to be any things that could come out of that going forward in regards to recommendations, well, the next CEO can probably help facilitate recommendations, and it's not stopping it. But from a discussion perspective, I would have thought having the current CEO in the chamber or in the room would actually provide a good bit of background going forward. This report too is I haven't felt comfortable with how this has been put together, and I'm concerned that. Trying to push it down the road, also trying to put it in a meeting where it's not going to get discussed properly in the public. Just the way that it was actually presented, the way that it was actually formulated in regards to the motions that were put forward, I've got lots of questions, and I did state that at the meeting at Lucendale in confidence that I wasn't comfortable with the way that this transaction's gone ahead. So I think we should need to be having it now with the CEO present.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Is there any further discussion?
Question, Mayor Ross.
Just
an open question to the CEO. When live streaming came about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the CEO reminded us that those common law torts, that we as councillors would be exposed to the common law torts, which include defamation, slander, all sorts of things. Now, given I don't know, I'll ask the question, do you think in these reports that various organisations have called into question the professionalism of the other organisations, the respective organisations that are referred to in the reports? I just ask whether we potentially are exposed to the law. Just that's the question. We'll forget about the reports. Are we exposed to those common law torts in the way that we conduct ourselves and our duty of care going forward in public discussions, particularly those which are live streamed?
Mr. Smart.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. So, yes, I did outline that probably early on in this term, probably the previous term as well, that we as council don't have the same protections as state and federal governments, where they're protected in their chambers. Council is not. So what we say, what we present, is open to dispute, question, etc. So live stream is only an extension of that. So our meetings all have to be public, including briefing sessions. So a briefing session can be held in confidence, but it has to still meet all the requirements of a normal report that would go into a council agenda. Say we can do this in confidence if it ticks a box of those provisions. So if it doesn't, the briefing session will be held in public and anyone's able to attend. So whether it's through attendance or live stream, public's allowed to hear what is said. So they're open to the public. So the same rules apply to briefing sessions as council meetings and committee meetings.
Mr. Smart, can you just remind us of the regulation that Mr. Brock may have and how that may or may not affect briefing sessions?
Thanks, Mayor Ross. So probably a bit of history in what are briefing sessions, workshops, information sessions, are all different terminology over the years. In Minister Brock's time, I think as I've described it to the Mayor on numerous occasions, I think he had a dummy spit. So he legislated what were informal briefing sessions. So we now have to comply with legislation on how we call those briefing sessions, whereas probably 8 years ago, we called an information session, had informal discussion, and onwards we went. So the anomaly in legislation, as you know, with committee meetings and council meetings, we give X amount of days notice to the public and council that we're holding a meeting, whatever it may be. With the briefing sessions and briefing session workshops, they're the same thing. We just use different language, so they're one and the same. We actually give notice after we've had the sessions. So that doesn't make any difference whether they're... So the notice that elected members get will indicate whether it's in confidence or not, but the public are not aware in us meeting legislation that there may be a briefing session on. So in the past, we've had some members of the public, media attend some of our briefing sessions. Sometimes we have none, but the same rules apply to a briefing session as today's council meeting. So as far as the roads report, the housing strategy, whenever they're called, the CEO may not call them in confidence because all that information is already available to the public. That's how it works. And there's nothing in those reports that would tick any of the in confidence boxes.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Any further discussion on Councillor Rayner's motion? Councillor Turner.
I'm comfortable with this, but I'd also be comfortable if you had both CEOs, because being part of the interview panel, I noted that Kelly's comment was that Sheila had also used Wheaton's in their council for for a review, and I think that would be valuable insight from what another council's perspective is to add to our council's perspective. And I'd be very comfortable if both CEOs would be involved in that, and I'm sure Mr. Smart would be briefing Kelly, and they'd be having discussions about it, about what the position could or should be. I imagine as part of some sort of handover, but I think given that both councils have used the same consultant, there seems to be a bit of controversy over it. I feel it's important. One, the new CEO will inherit this, and it's a long-term, it's a setup of long-term about the way we go about things, procedures, etc. So if it can only be one, I'm supporting the motion, but I'm very comfortable if both CEOs were there and we arranged it that way, whether it's live or in person or on screen. I'm not sure what you feel about that, Mr. Smart.
I'll only make a comment. So with the new CEO starting, there's a month gap. I'll obviously have some handover notes. I've talked to the new CEO. I've offered to catch up if she wishes, so totally her call. If she doesn't want to discuss anything, that's fine. But so it's with a new CEO, that's a smarter way of doing things, because a lot of CEOs don't want the old CEO hanging around and offering various opinions. But I've made that offer if she wants to sit down for coffee and have a chat. But as far as both CEOs being it, that doesn't work. Yeah, once I'm gone, I'm gone.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Smart. Appreciate it.
Councillor Rayner.
Yeah, it's very similar to councils that lose an election. They don't come along to brief the new council, do they?
I noticed.
That should close the debate.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Questions without notice? Questions without notice, Councillor Ross? I have a question without notice, Councillor Ross. I happen to be looking to the right-hand side of the table, so...
My question without notice is when we have the workshops or the informal gathering, can we please change the location to the Town Hall, please? Is that possible? For the housing strategy and the roads, can we look at changing the location, not being this chamber, but down at the Town Hall?
Thank you. That's a question. I'm not quite sure what to do with that. Take it on notice, I suppose. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Goodman, question without notice.
Yeah, a question through you, Mayor, to the CEO. With support of the Chamber, would it be possible to defer the briefing session for the housing strategy, similar position to the roads report, where the new CEO will be the one to enact the strategy, and it would be useful to have her input into the priorities and actions that are developed as part of that housing strategy?
Mr. Smart.
Thanks, Councillor Goodman, and I had some discussions with the Mayor probably from December about the timing of the briefing sessions, and I actually raised it with the Mayor. Does Council want to hold these briefing sessions with the new CEO or involve me beforehand or not? And so that was purely a discussion point and I guess to provoke a bit of thought. So yes, it can be deferred. That would be potentially my call because I call the briefing sessions, so I can uncall them or defer them, etc. I guess just going on from Councillor Turner's discussion, where it might be healthy to have opinion of an old CEO and a new CEO moving forward. I tend to agree with that, how that would happen, but I guess discussions with the Mayor previously, and this is my opinion, and you can take it and do with it what you like. I think it would be healthy for Council. Now, obviously, the roads one has been deferred, and that's the will of the Council. Probably the cause and effect of that is a new CEO arrives in 31st of March. They're unlikely to call a briefing session on these two subjects probably till late May, maybe June, by the time they get feet on the ground, etc. So there's a lot of time elapsed from when we've done stuff to where we go into discussion. So my opinion, and I'll answer it properly for you in a minute. So I think it would have been healthy for council to have an initial discussion, just to brainstorm ideas of what you liked, didn't like about either road report, what some of the directions or actions possibly could be on the housing strategy. Given that myself and Mr McCrosty have authored the housing strategy, and the roads report is done by two independents with a lot of guidance from Mr Willsmore. So I think it would have been healthy to have some initial discussion. What happens with that discussion? There's obviously probably some actions come out of that, and then the new CEO arrives, and then that discussion continues. That's my opinion of probably what a healthy process could have been. The roads one is now moved on, so that's decided. So in answer to your question, yes, it can be deferred. I can make that decision to defer it until the new CEO comes along. So you don't need a motion for that. That could be as it's happened today, a discussion on perhaps how to go about that, so it can be achieved.
If I may respond, given that context and in the interest of making, the new CEO will have a lot to do when they start, I'm happy to accept that we proceed with a briefing session to start that initial discussion about the priorities and actions for the draft strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Guzman. I think that's really good, and thank you. The longer we delay these things, it puts us months and months behind, and it's important that we continue to carry on. So thank you, Councillor Goodman.
Just a reminder that that's next week. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Goodman.
Item 19, motions without notice. There aren't any. Item 20, matters that the CEO recommends to be considered in confidence. And that is where we finish today's live streaming. Thank you.